Welcome back to the Body Wisdom series. I'm Cherie, your somatic coach. In our last video, we identified the 3 primary states your nervous system can be in according to Polyvagal Theory. Today, in this video, we are going to take a deeper look at how these states affect us and how understanding them can help us to better meet our emotional responses. Polyvagal theory suggests that our nervous system works in a hierarchical manner, shifting between states depending on what we perceive in our environment when it comes to safety or threat. As social creatures, belonging is essential for our survival and well-being. Therefore, typically, our first impulse is to seek safety and connection, ventral vagal. However, if that doesn't seem possible or available or safe enough, we will typically then shift into sympathetic, preparing ourselves to fight or flee. If none of those seem like options, then we will typically shift into dorsal vagal, essentially withdrawing and shutting down as a last resort to protect ourselves. Now, these shifts can happen very quickly and often, like I said, below conscious awareness. That's why we can often find ourselves kind of in it without realizing what exactly happened. And when we move out of ventral vagal safety into sympathetic or dorsal vagal, it's not just our body that experiences a shift, it's also our brain. When we're in fight or flight sympathetic or dorsal vagal shutdown, our access to the higher parts of our brain, like the neocortex, become limited. This is the part of our brain that is responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and problem solving. However, when we're feeling threatened, stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious, those functions essentially get turned down and our body takes over, preparing us to act out of survival instincts. And it's not just rational thought that gets shut down. We also lose access to things like empathy, curiosity, openness, and it makes sense. If our nervous system thinks that our survival is at stake, whether that is remotely true or not, it doesn't see those things as useful or important. This means that our ability to see and consider another person's perspective and to stay caring, patient, kind becomes really challenging when we're in these states. And that is again because our system is taking over and it is just trying to get us through that moment and protect ourselves, sometimes at any cost. Think of a situation where you felt really anxious or defensive. In that sympathetic state, you likely felt the urge to either lash out, fight, or get out of there, flee. This is a common response when we're activated. We respond impulsively, usually attacking or distancing ourselves. This is not a failure of character. It is simply our nervous system in survival mode. Now, that said, I am certainly not making excuses for harmful or bad behavior, and certainly not violent behavior. I'm simply shining a light from a nervous system perspective on what happens when we're activated. We are all responsible for both our words and actions, no matter what state we're in. So what about dorsal vagal? This is when we're feeling disconnected and shut down. This is very different. Instead of wanting to flee, we may feel emotionally frozen. Everything and everyone may feel distant and numb. Interacting with others or even thinking clearly may become very difficult. It may seem like the world is moving in slow motion and nothing really matters. From a physiological and biological perspective, until our bodies and our nervous system return to a state of ventral vagal safety, our capacity for vulnerability, empathy, conflict resolution, and genuine intimacy remains limited. That's why it's so important for us to have an understanding of what's happening in our nervous system and our bodies, and to develop tools so that we can support and work with ourselves when we move into these states. Awareness of these state shifts is the very first step towards finding new ways to both relate to and respond to what's happening inside of us. Thank you so much for being here with me. If you're finding this helpful, please follow me over at Your Somatic Coach on Instagram, and I look forward to seeing you in the very next video where we're going to talk about how trauma impacts our nervous system and our ability to emotionally regulate.